Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Headlines. I'm Ryan Gilchrest, Managing Editor of Post and Courier Greenville and Post and Courier Spartanburg. We're going to be talking about downtown today. The two biggest downtowns in the Upstate, Greenville and Spartanburg. For that, we have a bit of a crossover event. We've got our Greenville team and our Spartanburg team here today. We've got Asia Rollins and Chris Lavender, who are reporting on Spartanburg, Eric Connor and Stephanie Mirah, who report on Greenville. They cover a wide range of topics. So looking forward to a quick pace today and a lot of topics to cover, but a good discussion about what's going on in the core of the core in downtown in both cities. Quickly, before we get started, I do want to thank you all for being here. If you're not already a Post and Courier subscriber, please consider that. I'll give you a little more information on that at the end of this. Or if you're signed up for our newsletters, that'd be great too. I think a lot of you probably are. It's probably how you heard about this. So I'll be back to tell you a little more about that later. But first, we want to kind of get on to the news. So what we want to talk about today, there's a lot of development, redevelopment, a lot of things going on, both in the sort of central part of Greenville and central part of Spartanburg, that we found are interesting topics. And we want to try and shed a little bit more light on that today and sort of discuss the process and look at various things. We've received questions from a lot of you. If you have questions as we go along, please drop that into the Q&A. We'll try to answer everything we possibly can. We did get a few questions that weren't specifically relevant to the downtown discussion today, but we will try to address those as much as we can, whether it's on this particular event or on a later one. So bear with us. We're going to try to cover a lot of things. We did get a few questions though about the design review board. And frankly, that ties into a couple of things we want to talk about with both downtowns. So I thought it might be enlightening to start off by talking a little bit about what the city design review board does, what their role is in each city, whether it's the same or different. And then kind of use that to bridge into the rest of the discussion. So, Eric, why don't I start with you? Talk a little bit about Greenville's design review board in the city, and what do they do? What's the makeup? What's their role?
Yep. So the design review board is a citizen panel made up of largely architects and people who have some expertise in the field of design. It's really evolved over the years as Greenville has grown. So years ago, when Greenville was first coming into shape and how it was going to look, the design review, but there wasn't as many projects. So, you know, the stakes weren't as high, but as Greenville has really exploded, I remember back in 2015 when the Camperdown development was first being proposed, and when that went through the system, you know, it was big money from out of Greenville involved, and the design review board had a lot of pressure for something that was so transformative. And over the years, their role has increased to a point where developers are making big money decisions, and there can be a lot of tension, and you know, I think going forward, there might be a new way of doing things as the city rewrites its land management ordinance.
Right, that process is ongoing. Do we have as they get to those new ordinances? What's the timetable on that?
Basically, about a year. Okay. It's a major undertaking, and the idea is to make it so that some of these decisions that the design review board is making, where they're not sure exactly what the standard is for this piece of property, kind of off the cuff sometimes, it seems like they're having to go, there's going to be specific standards that will guide them a little more sound way.
Okay. All right. We'll get a little more into that process, but Chris, I want to go to you quickly. Spartanburg's design review board, does it operate in a similar way? What's their role? The makeup of the group, et cetera?
There are some similarities between the two. The design review board in Spartanburg was established in 2011. It's a 4-member board. They meet once a month. And so what they do is, as developers have projects, they present it to the design review board first. And if it gets approval, then it goes to the city council for development agreements. So the design review board, they can make suggestions to the planning director. They look at projects in terms of height and other criteria that's set by the city's zoning ordinances.
Okay. Yeah. So currently the design review board at Greenville's similar in this way too. They're kind of the first line for some of these big projects. You recently wrote about one that's starting to work its way through the process that is with design review board right now. A fairly large project right in the middle of Spartanburg. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, M. Peters Group, based in Greenville, has presented a plan to the design review board to develop a portion of East Main Street in downtown Spartanburg. What they would like to do is basically build 3 buildings and include mixed use in those. And they're going to use the existing facades on the buildings as part of the overall integration of the plan.
But these are taller buildings, would go up behind the facades, towers.
They're between 10 to 7 stories tall, with the tallest building in the middle being about 11 stories, 2 other buildings on either side being about 7 stories each.
Okay. Now, when will this, so that there's some sort of initial approval from the design review board, but they've got to come back with actual designs and plans, correct?
That is correct. The design review board agreed to allow them to have certain setbacks, height requirements. The developer is going to come back between 4 to 6 months to present more details of the architectural design of the project. So it will be about 4 to 6 months before it comes back before the design review board.
Okay. All right. So we'll look for more on that possibly in the spring. Eric, what are some of the notable things before the design review board in Greenville at the moment?
There's almost too many to name.
Pick your favorites.
Well, I'm like kind of wonky, I guess. It's like the design review board plays some different roles. Like in downtown, it's, it has say, you have to get through them, but they also play a role in informal reviews where it's an advisory opinion. And so one of the big projects around Unity Park is the Delano, which I'm sorry, I think you should call it the Delano because it's named after Franklin Roosevelt, but they love to call it Delano, but we can debate that another time. Anyway, the Delano is a 6-story project, and maybe 8 stories. And it lies right outside the design review board's purview, but there was an informal review where they really loved the project. So because it's not downtown, it goes before the planning commission. But one of the, when I talk about the land management ordinance, is there was a specific Unity Park development code that's right on the edge of Unity Park. And because it's so specific, there wasn't really much room for debate about how it looks. It was very directly related to how it should look. And so the DRB sent on their recommendation, and the planning commission wasn't bound to it, but they did use their expertise in knowing that they're a little more design oriented.
Okay, so obviously we'll be continuing to keep an eye on all of that. That is an entity that we do keep a close eye on in many ways because it is sort of the first line of potential new projects coming through. And of course, as Eric mentioned, things still have to go through planning commission, city councils, etc. But obviously always interesting to keep an eye on what may be coming in the future. Let's bridge a little bit, not way off the topic, but on a similar line, and certainly one of the things that has to be watched as part of a consequence of development. That's affordable housing. Erica, I want to start with you there. What's the city doing to address affordable housing? I know there's been a lot of discussion on it. There was a joint city-county plan some other things, but what's actually happening with affordable housing in downtown Greenville?
Well, it really took off around 2017, and the commitment, the political commitment to affordable housing. So the city has put more and more money into it, into a housing trust fund, and through that, they collaborate in various different ways to try to leverage opportunities for affordable housing. I think one thing that's interesting about it, and around Unity Park, there's several acres of land the city bought and specifically for affordable housing. But one of the interesting things I've noticed lately is whenever a project comes through that doesn't require affordable housing, developers are including affordable housing in some of these luxury apartments, and it seems to reflect a recognition of the political will, where the majority of the city council, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter, the projects are looked upon more favorably. So, it makes it so there's a higher chance of success, it seems like, even if not directly required. So you're seeing a lot of more expensive projects, including that in there, and it's a little piecemeal. But it seems like that's basically the affordable housing strategy in Greenville, is everything just kind of one little piece at a time, and we're not even close to meeting the need.
Right. I think if I'm remembering correctly, the number cited on that report a while back, and forgive me if I get it wrong, was something like we're already 10,000 units deficient, and there was a huge effort needed to sort of catch up on that. Asia Rollins, I want to come to you here in a second, but while we're on it, it's probably worthwhile, just in case anyone doesn't sort of understand what's being discussed in terms of affordable housing, is it's typically measured as a percentage of your income against the area mean income. And certainly that can fluctuate significantly. You hear a lot of numbers thrown around, like 60% or 80%. Essentially, that just means what percentage of the household income matches up to the mean family income in the area. So you hear affordable housing, but it can mean a lot of different things, especially depending on what percentage of that average income you're looking at. So we do want to try and make sure we introduce that nuance to it. Asia, you've done some reporting over on the north side of Spartanburg and with some of those projects there. What can you tell us as far as what's going on in Spartanburg?
Yeah, so there's a lot of developments popping up on the north side of Spartanburg. And
sorry,
so
Asia. There we go. I'm sorry, we got an echo there for a second, but Asia, if you could start over, that'd be great.
So there are lots of developments popping up all over Spartanburg's north side, and the North Side Development Group has really spearheaded a lot of that revitalization projects. And so it's made up of developers, residents, and stakeholders who are really invested in bringing recreational, educational, mixed income, opportunity and business opportunities for people on that side of the city. And one of the biggest things that they've done recently is that the city decided that they wanted to demolish the Norris Ridge apartments. And so to replace those apartments, they built the Robert Smalls townhomes, and it's made up of 190, it's a 190 townhome unit. And so they started moving those people out in phases. And so since I've been able to cover the north side, the city has been very consistent with making sure that those people they're informed about what's actually going on within their area, and also having a say-so in some of those changes.
That's a very comprehensive project. And having been over there and looked around on the north side quite a bit, there's a lot of cohesiveness with that project, a lot of working together of various properties, including, I think, even in conjunction with the university and some other things. Is that correct?
Yes. They did like the 500 Northside Station, and so Wofford College has some things in there, and also BCom, which is a medical school across the street. They have some classes in some of those developments too. And on top of one of those buildings, there's also a mixed income development and apartments on some of those buildings also. So that the north side is it's revitalizing a lot, and there's a ton of mixed use housing options on that side of the city.
Okay. All right, so let's shift again. I want to talk a little bit about businesses, development tied to businesses moving into downtown. And I want to focus on Greenville at first. So let me bring in Stephanie Mirah for that. Stephanie covers business for us. And one of the questions we got in, Stephanie, this would be a good way to sort of bridge into the overall topic. One of the questions we received related to the development we're seeing right now next to or just below the falls on the Reedy River, specifically the Grand Bohemian. We're going to talk about United Community Bank's new headquarters coming in as well. But there was some question there about the environmental impact and some of the other things. You've actually done some reporting on this. And in fact, for those of you who are watching, there's a story that we haven't published yet that will be published very soon, possibly today, related to some of this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your reporting with United Community Bank and their coming building first, but also a little bit about the Grand Bohemian, which you've seen and been in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So anytime something pops up on the East Camperdown Way development with Falls Park and the Reedy River, it is piquing curiosity just because of how prominent that part is to our, sorry, we're receiving an echo. Can everyone hear?
Yeah, Stephanie, if you would just mute for a moment and then
Sure.
unmute, I'm hoping that'll take care of it.
So since it's the landmark of really what the city is, people always get very curious when things pop up there. So most recently, while you haven't seen the building come to fruition yet, right next to the Grand Bohemian at 200 East Camperdown Way, United Community Bank is going to be establishing its official mark in the Upstate as the largest headquartered bank in South Carolina, starting in early 2022, because that's where it's going to be breaking ground where the old Weish law firm is. So if anyone's been down that way, you definitely know that the old Weish law firm building is right above that river and has the potential of impacting the river environmentally. And so that wasn't really something that initially came my way, but through conversations with the bank's developer and the bank's architect, I learned that they were hyper aware of that, and they knew that people were going to be concerned about the environment. So they took precautionary measures before even designing their building to make sure they were mitigating any concerns that the public would have. So in order to do that, rather than engage the entire public, which would be virtually impossible for them to do, they took 9 representatives from 5 conservation and environmental groups in the Upstate, and they brought them together collectively to talk about a variety of different environmental related topics, such as landscaping, trees, water management, bird fly-through areas, visual impacts. They talked about so many different topics over the course of 2 different meetings, and their developer told their designers to hold out on designing the building altogether before they had these conversations with these conservation groups. So they got together in the developer's office, which is in the Camperdown development. He mentioned during our conversation taking them out and just looking at the Reedy, and he was like, tell me your thoughts. Our building's going to be right there. Just share what you're thinking. So they had some informal conversations like that, but then the developer went a step further, showed those groups topographical studies, drone videos to show how the building would look visually from different parts of the banks of the river, different parts of the city. And through those conversations, they designed the building that you'll see come up in the next few years. And the conservation groups unanimously agreed that the visual impact for Falls Park would be low, and that environmentally, the developer and architect are taking steps to care about the environment, whether that's through the trees they're choosing to plant or the flowers they're choosing to plant. So if you're concerned out there about what's happening to Falls Park and all the construction going around it, know that people are thinking about that, and that is something important to the people who are building there.
Even steps like, I believe the building, the plan is that it'll be glass to sort of blend in with the sky. There's some screens and other things to block off the parking area. That's all part of that package, correct?
Correct. So even the look of the building, emphasize the glass portion, their hope is that it would just blend in with the sky and the environment around it. So really, when you're looking at it, you think you're looking at Falls Park, which might feel like an oversimplification of what's going on, but it will reflect the environment it's in. So you get that kind of almost metaphysical thought that this building doesn't exist. It's just a part of the park.
You know, and since we're on that, we're right next to it. Obviously, the Grand Bohemian, which is close to completion, right? We're looking at probably an April opening date or completion date on that.
Yes. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say May, worst case scenario. So just in case, let's not forget, maybe May.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you and I have been over there. We were able to get a look at it, I guess, about 6 weeks ago. Can you talk about, because I think most people really can't see this particularly well with the way the construction has everything blocked off. When you get out the backside of United Community Bank and you reach the point where the banks go down to the river, what does that look like back there? How does that sort of blend into what's below it?
Are we talking about the Grand Bohemian's back staircase?
Yeah, the part that probably nobody can see right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you're back there, there's what I would call a relatively narrow staircase that leads from their outside terrace bar. So for those who are unfamiliar at this point, the Grand Bohemian will include a bourbon bar, and that will extend out into a terrace location that overlooks the falls. But they have the privilege of not only overlooking the falls from that terrace location, but taking a staircase down to the lower part of the falls. So it's a very narrow, like wooden, still looks very woodsy staircase, and it's not going to be really developed much further than in its current state when we were down there. But they're also kind of remaining hesitant of the falls as well, because the staircase doesn't go all the way down to the lower falls. So you can get down to like a landing on the staircase. You're still a good few yards from the water itself, but it's a significant thing for them as a hotel, because you're not going to be able to ever access that part of the falls in any other place. And so it's kind of a cool privilege that they have.
And the idea is that is publicly accessible, correct?
It is publicly accessible because their restaurant, their bar, and their art gallery, different aspects of their hotel, while some things are reserved for people who are staying there, a lot of the aspects are public use. And so that will be definitely something you'll want to check out when it's open.
Okay. All right. So let's shift the discussion a little more. Let's stay downtown, but maybe kind of move away from the river for a moment. Last 18 months, 2 years, we've seen a lot of businesses sort of change the way they work. They've sent people home. They've, gone to hybrid schedules, various other things. I think we've all just been sort of waiting to see how that might change the long-term desire or need by companies for commercial real estate, traditional office space, things like that. Hard to know that we really have answers on that yet. I think what we're finding is every business is a little different. But we have seen some sort of movement on that front recently, particularly Canal, a local company taking a pretty prominent spot. You talked to them. What was their thinking as far as, moving into that kind of office space?
Yeah, so a little background. Canal Insurance Company is a long-haul trucking insurance company based in Greenville, family-owned. And for anyone who's ever driven down Stone Avenue, you've definitely seen their current headquarters location, which looks like a box store warehouse. And so they made that announcement that they're moving into the 101 North Main building, which is pretty significant, barring that building was primarily vacant since Bank of America moved to the Camper Down development. And so their thought process, as I went a step further in that reporting and talked to their CEO and president, who is not a part of the family owned, not family operated, but he was saying how they've been in the market for a new headquarters for years, and that they just wanted to do it absolutely right. So they were taking time trying to scout out different locations to where they could potentially go. But as we hear so frequently, COVID changes so many of our daily lives and what we think is important. And not only did Canal mention the importance of an office space, but major other corporations and businesses like United Community Bank, most recently Transcom. They're all talking about how their culture cannot continue to develop if they're all in separate houses doing at-home work. And so Canal's story was the same. They decided that they value culture. They want to make sure that they're flexible, as all these different corporations and businesses do care about flexibility and working in hybrid environments, but having a home base when needed. And so that's how they found their way to 101 North Main. And it really is a blessing for them as well as a local business to not only get to be in one of the most prominent buildings in the central business district, but to have their name actually on the building as the anchoring tenant there. And so you'll see that movement start to happen in about mid next year.
Okay. And they're taking up, again, how many floors of that building?
Yeah, they're taking up 5 floors, and they're going to occupy about 1/3 of the building. So that gives them basically naming rights to the building.
Gotcha. Okay, well, Stephanie, I have more questions for you, but we are starting to run a little bit long. So I think that probably pretty soon we're going to do another Beyond the Headlines specifically about Greenville business. So stay tuned for that. Chris and Asia, I want to bounce to you quickly. Obviously, businesses moving into downtown there as well. Chris, let me start with you. What have you covered lately as far as what's moving into downtown Spartanburg?
Well, probably the latest thing is the Montgomery Group. We were talking about the design review board earlier. They made a presentation on December 2nd, and they have plans to build a 3-story, $10 million office spec building on North Church Street. So there's definitely a growing need for more office space in the downtown area, and the city and Montgomery Group are working together to try to bring that to downtown.
Asia, what about you?
So the hub is a pretty, is Echo gone?
You're okay.
New development that's coming probably mid 2022 to Spartanburg, and it's in the former location of the Sunshine Inn Motel. And so right now there's only 2 tenants. So Wofford College's bookstore is going to be there, and they have Moe's Original Barbecue. And I was able to talk to some people from Wofford College, and they said that new bookstore will really give them an opportunity to not only have classes there and to invite speakers, but it's also not only for the students, but just the community as a whole will be able to enjoy some of those things.
Okay, so we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. Obviously, any movement downtown at all will be of interest there. So we will take a look at that. We did have a question just come in. And Chris, Asia, either one of you, if you could answer this one at all. Has there been any interest in building a studio apartment building, restoration or new build in Spartanburg? Are either of you aware of anything along those lines?
At this point, I have not heard that come up in discussion.
Okay, all right, we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, again, there's a significant amount of housing development that's going on in downtown Spartanburg right now, which until just the past few years didn't have a huge amount of that, and so there's a lot of development there. We'll keep an eye on that. Eric and Chris, I want to come back to you really quickly because there were some questions about municipal offices, and Eric in particular. And I'm going to come to you second, but Eric in particular, City Hall and some things like that have been of interest. But Chris, let me start with you. Spartanburg has a plan to put city and county municipal offices together in a new building. Is that correct? And what can you tell us about that?
That is correct. Just some quick background on that. In November 2017, voters in Spartanburg County approved a penny sales tax increase, and that money through 2018 through 2024 is projected to generate close to $225 million. Now that money is going to an assortment of projects, including the new courthouse construction. But part of that, about $65 million, is going to go towards a joint city-county admin building. The location has not yet been identified, but the schedule for that is to start construction on that once the new courthouse is complete. So we're looking at probably late 2022, 2023 before the city county admin building will move forward.
Okay. All right. So the idea there to bring basically all of government in Spartanburg City and County together. Eric, a lot has gone on with City Hall possibly moving and then not moving, and now an additional focus on relocating some other city services to a different property. Give us the whole rundown of what's going on with city services at the moment. Eric, you're muted.
This dates back a really long time, but I'll just stay with recent history.
Sure.
For many years, the city has wanted to have a police headquarters, the law enforcement center they share with Greenville County Sheriff's Office, and they literally have 4 people working in one office, and they negotiate for space and share lockers and all of that. So they've wanted a headquarters that has police and municipal court and fire administration. City Hall is very cramped these days. And so while they were looking for that, that's just kind of been on the back burner. There was this, sort of sudden announcement that they wanted to do a land swap with the Bowater building right across from the Grand Bohemian. And that it seemed like a done deal almost the way they were talking about it. There was a lot of attractive aspect of it is just that it was in such a premium location. That deal fell through, and right at the same time as the city is looking for the opportunity for a headquarters, the Floor building out near Haywood Mall, one of the Floor buildings across from where the county moved family court came open, and they really shifted their resources toward that. So that's a $27 million deal. And I think they're just kind of in a pause situation where the move to Bowater is officially dead, but Mayor Knox White says that he believes there is a possibility that somehow they can inhabit that. So we'll see how that works out and what happens to City Hall, which requires a lot of renovation.
Right. Yeah. If you're not familiar, City Hall's it's 10 stories, correct?
10 stories, yes.
Yeah. So not the ideal structure for public accessibility, especially over the last year and a half. It's been, I think probably not the ideal building for that. And so we'll see what happens with that. We'll obviously keep a close eye on any movement there, as well as what it might cost and how anything might work. A couple other questions we had come in that were, I think, probably pretty easy to answer. One is, are there any buildings over 20 stories proposed? I believe the question was related to Greenville, but I think I can safely extend this to Spartanburg as well. Not that we're aware of. I think the tallest building in either city maxes out around 17 floors. But no, we're not aware of any extremely tall structures coming in. Doesn't mean they're not, but currently no. What's the status of the downtown conference center? We reported on this quite a bit a while back, as far as some deliberation over what size it might need to be in order to be appropriate for the area and fill a niche and not overcompete with other things. We don't have a concrete update on that yet, but obviously it's a topic we're watching closely. So we should have more reporting coming on that in the near future. It doesn't look like we have any other questions sitting in the queue. I think we addressed everything, and very uncharacteristically, I have gone long. I typically end these right at 12:30, but thought we had a lot to discuss today. So we appreciate you hanging in with us a little bit longer. Obviously, we're going to have a lot more on a lot of the things we talked today. So be sure and stay tuned. postandcourier.com/Greenville, postandcourier.com/Spartanburg. If you want the business stuff specifically, just add /business to the end of either one of those. We appreciate you watching this. We will post recording on the website and on YouTube in case you want to watch this again or share it with a friend. postandcourier.com/beyond-the-headlines. That should be up relatively soon. You can also support our work for signing up for any of our free newsletters. postandcourier.com/Greenville/newsletter- sign up. We appreciate those. Those are free to receive. We do about 5 of those a week, specifically about the Upstate now. There's a whole bunch of Post and Courier emails you can sign up for. Paid subscribers make our brand of journalism possible, help us keep our communities informed. We would appreciate your support. Please consider a subscription to the Post and Courier, a paid subscription to the Post and Courier. You can see that at postandcourier.com/Greenville/subscribe or postandcourier.com/Spartanburg/subscribe. There's plenty of good deals going on, both annual and a short-term sign up for new subscribers. Please check that out if you haven't before. You can also support our investigative efforts by going to postandcourier.com. Look for the link to make a donation that supports our education lab, the Uncovered series, any number of things that we do. Please do check that out and find out a little bit more. On behalf of the entire Post and Courier Greenville and Spartanburg team and Post and Courier as a whole, we thank you for your attention. We'll be back again soon. See you next time. Thank you.